Hi, this is Father George Corrigan at St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church in Triangle, Virginia. And today in our parish, we are celebrating the patronal feast of St. Francis of Assisi, obviously the patron of this parish, treating it as a solemnity and using the readings for that solemnity. The gospel reading for the day, has that great counsel from Jesus. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon me and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for yourself. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. In the life of St. Francis, he went to Rome to see Pope Innocent III, him and a couple of brothers, and said, well, I want to live this religious life in poverty to follow Christ. And Innocent approved, and then said, oh yeah, and preach penance. Francis did not see that one coming. So in the course of time, he returns to the Assisi area, and they form the brotherhood, and they go about their life, and the brothers grow. By the time of Francis's death 20 years later, there were probably 3,000 friars that were kind of spread across from Spain to Italy to Europe, up into the northern parts of Europe. One group had seen Francis and knew him personally and followed his example, but the majority of friars had never met Francis. And so in the course of time, people were saying, well, this is what it means to be Francis, but it wasn't Francis saying it or Francis showing it. And so the brothers continued to preach. The brothers continued to be brothers, but or like any other family, we have our friction points. And everybody in the world started having opinions about how the Franciscans should be organized, run, and all the rest of the stuff. And that preaching and the opinions were a burden in Francis's time. And the brothers were sometimes a burden. By about 30 years after Francis's death, the divisions had grown quite dramatic within the order. There was one group that said, we should be obedient. That's the most important of the vows. Said, no, poverty, that's the most important of the vows. And there was a third group that said, hey, guys, can't we just get along? And the answer was they really weren't getting along. This is when St. Bonaventure of Bagnoregio came and spoke to the whole order in 1256. And the text of our gospel today was the text he used, because his counsel was, to be meek and humble of heart, to be brother to one another, but to look to Francis, but to look past Francis, because the yoke we really take on is following Christ in the manner of Francis, which is centered on humility and wisdom. And so he asked the brothers, in humility and wisdom, to begin to come together to discuss what divides them. And so part of that advice today is for us too, to seek that wisdom and humility on the days that we feel labored and burdened. The days where sometimes happens, someone will come up to me and say, hey, Father, you priest do anything other than say a couple of masses a week? And I'm not sure whether to be offended or was that an ironic joke I missed? I generally just let it go. But there's that part where, the moments that we're tiredness of self-aware, when our compassion tank is on empty, is probably the moment we not only need that humility and wisdom, we also need to take time for ourselves. And it in times of a family life, and there's just so much going on in the family. The kids are going in all sorts of directions. You got a boss at work that thinks nothing of calling you at 8:30 at night, and you feel labored and you feel burdened, and you go, geez, I don't know, where am I going to get the energy to do this? It's the same as students, where homework can be overwhelming, activities, sports, keeping up with the social media can be overwhelming. In our aspects of life, we can all reach that point where we just feel labored and burdened. And the question is, what's needed to go forward is not a snappy retort. What's needed to go forward is some wisdom and humility. Well, what did Christ do when he felt burdened and labored? He withdrew to the mountain in prayer. And you see that a number of times in the gospel. He knew to take time to himself, to refocus himself on this mission his Father had given him. What did Francis do? Francis was well noted for withdrawing to the mountain to pray and take brothers with him to be this sort of moment of in which together they sought the wisdom and the humility of what it meant to live this Franciscan life. So that's our advice to us. In this moment that you feel labored and burdened, find that mountain, withdraw to that mountain, and pray. Pray for humility. Pray for wisdom. Pray for what does it mean to follow Christ in this modern world as mom or dad or student or friar or any role that we've undertaken, because we are the living example of Christ in the world. So in those moments, labored and burdened, may you seek the Lord and take on that yoke of prayer, a yoke that is light, a yoke that is easy. And may God give you peace. Amen.